The ball left the pitcher's hand and every light in the stadium died at once. 50,000 breaths stopped. The pitch thudded into the catcher's mitt in perfect black, and a voice, no mic, no echo, just a dry whisper that seemed to come from inside the concrete itself, spoke into the dark, "Stay. We're not finished." Phone screens burst to life like scattered stars. A child cried somewhere in the upper deck, a man laughed too loudly to prove he wasn't scared. Emergency bulbs along the concourses flickered, caught, and then pulsed twice, as if the building itself were learning how to breathe again. The scoreboard stayed dead. The infield vanished. But the sound system coughed once with static, like an old radio warming up, and the same whisper came through softer, almost patient, "One more." I was in section 137, row Q, seat 8, close enough to taste the clay in the air when the wind rolled off the diamond. Downtown Los Angeles glowed beyond the rim of the ballpark like a ring of watchful eyes. It was after midnight, deep into extra innings, and no one knew when this game planned to end. People kept calling it epic. They didn't know the word I'd use. Cursed. A security guard with a flashlight swept the aisle and told us to remain seated. Around me, strangers became neighbors, trading nervous jokes, offering sips of water, asking if anyone had a portable charger. I nodded when someone asked if I was okay, because anything was easier than telling the truth. I had vowed never to come back here after what happened my first time in this stadium, years ago, when the innings stacked too high and the lights faltered exactly like this. I was 13 then. My dad squeezed my shoulder and said, "We don't go down there," and I never asked what there was. Not until the texts started this week. Not until the voicemail. I played that voicemail in my head as the dark pressed in. A man with a smoker's rasp, someone who worked in maintenance, from the clink of keys and the echoing footsteps, had said, "If this gets to you, I didn't make it out before the 18th. It wakes up during long ones. The air shifts. Clocks don't agree. And you can hear them, practicing." Then, faint in the background, the layered murmur of a crowd where there shouldn't be one, and the scrape of cleats on concrete. The message cut off mid-sentence. No name. No number. The file had arrived at 3:17 a.m. with no subject line. Backup power finally rolled a dim skin of light across the field. The pitcher stood frozen on the mound. The batter stepped out, then and again, pretending everything was fine. A concession shutter rattled somewhere behind me. Far beyond the outfield, a service door creaked open and hung there, a rectangle of dark yawning into the tunnels under the seats. Every phone light in our section tilted toward it. No one walked through. The door just breathed. I should have stayed put. I should have been the kind of person who claps when the lights return and laughs when someone says this game could go 20 innings. But fear has a twin called curiosity, and mine had been awake since I was 13. I stood up. My legs felt hollow, like I was walking on the paper tubes you find inside wrapping paper. The guard lifted his flashlight toward me. "Sir, please remain seated," he said. "We'll restart play soon." "That's the problem," I whispered. He didn't hear me over the low tide of voices and the distant whine of a generator kicking somewhere in the bowels of the park. I slid into the aisle and headed for the tunnel marked with a small blue sign, "Concourse, Field Access, Service." Cool air rose from below as if the night itself were being exhaled through the ballpark's lungs. My phone's flashlight lanced a thin path along cinderblock walls scribbled with arrows and faded paint: load, home, visitors, suites. The floor sloped down. The hum of the crowd thinned, replaced by a slow, measured clink, 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 like bats tapping a rack somewhere deep in the dark, counting time. I told myself I was only going a little way. Just to see. Just to prove the voicemail was a prank and the door was a trick of my nerves. But I knew that was a lie. The truth was simpler. My father never watched baseball again after our long game night years ago, and when I finally got brave enough to ask why, he said, "Because my father didn't make it home from a game like that." He'd gone down to the concourse during extra innings and was simply gone. Paperwork called it a medical event, an accident, a case of mistaken identity. Families learn to live with words that never quite mean missing. The service corridor widened into a lower hallway with metal roll-up doors that had concession stands stripped of cash drawers and hot dog rollers. A poster leaned in a cracked frame, "Legends are made here." Someone had scored through the word "made" and carved "kept" into the plastic. My light shook. I told myself it was my hand. A gust of air turned the pages of a laminated safety map pinned to a corkboard. The edges fluttered like a held breath. I stepped closer. Someone had circled a square near the bullpen with a grease pencil and written "Stair 13" beside it. Another circle, deeper under the seating bowl, wore a single word: "Listen." The stadium speakers popped somewhere above me with a wash of static, then settled on silence. Down here, a different sound took over, the low, full-bodied rumble of a crowd not in the stands. It felt like standing next to a heart you could hear through walls. I followed the slope and the sound until I reached a heavy steel door painted the color of old chalk. Unlabeled. Locked with a push bar. It opened before I touched it. Cold rushed out, the sort of cold that lives in places the sun has never touched. The smell that followed was clean dirt and leather oil, and beneath that, something older, sour and time-lost, like a locker room that had been perfectly sealed for decades. My phone light reached a few feet into the dark, and then the dark decided it had seen enough and folded over the beam. I took one step in. The door side shut behind me. My phone lost its signal and its clock skipped forward 6 minutes. I watched it happen, 12:43 to 12:49, in a single blink. I thumbed on the camera, just to anchor myself to something, and the screen showed not a black corridor but a wide angle of an empty ballpark, sunlight on green, like the lens remembered a game that wasn't happening. A shadow crossed the screen where no person stood. I lowered the phone and listened. There it was, unmistakable now, the cheer that swells between pitches, the ripple that runs through a crowd when a batter fouls one straight back, the half-laugh that lives under disappointment when the ball hooks just foul. But all of it sounded wrong, tuned a few degrees low, recorded on tape and played back through thick cloth. It wasn't coming from above. It was coming from below. Another whisper brushed the concrete at my feet. Not from a speaker this time. Close. Human. Turn around, it said, kind and certain. Your inning is up. Something metallic clicked in the dark, like someone sliding a ball into a glove. A faint white line appeared along the floor at my toes, curving away into the black, as if the chalk itself had woken and decided to draw me a baseline. I should have run. I should have banged on the door and apologized to every instinct I'd ignored. Instead, I stepped forward until my shoe touched the line. From somewhere just ahead, a set of cleats began to walk, slow, patient, coming straight toward me. The air shifted cool across my face, like a shadow had moved without a body. And then, just for a heartbeat, the lights snapped on. I saw the stands. I saw the field. I saw 50,000 empty seats staring back like open mouths. The lights cut out again. The cleats stopped inches from my toes. The voice in the dark smiled without a mouth and said, "Welcome back to the bottom of the 18th. The line on the floor trembled like a living thing, curving ahead into the dark. The cleats stopped inches from my toes, and the voice, too close to be coming from any speaker, said, almost politely, "Bottom of the 18th. Don't be late." The lights snapped again, on, off, like the blink of something enormous. In that single, blinding heartbeat I saw rows upon rows of empty blue seats, the outfield wall, the press box windows like dead eyes. When the dark returned, the picture didn't vanish from my head. It hung there, burned into the inside of my eyelids, and for a second I wondered if that's how the place worked, give you a flash of normal so you'd keep walking toward anything that promised it. I slid my shoe along the chalk. It felt grainy, real, as if some hand had poured a brand new baseline in a corridor no one was supposed to use. The air was colder down here than it had any right to be in Los Angeles in late October. It tasted like old leather and damp clay, like the moments before a game starts, except nothing was starting. Everything felt halfway through. The line guided me to a stairwell stamped with a rusted plate, Stair 13. The number was the same as on the safety map I'd seen upstairs, the one circled with grease pencil beside the word "listen." I listened. The stadium above muttered in a low, endless rumble. Beneath that, closer, something tapped in a steady count, 1-2, 1-2, like a pitcher breathing through his motion, like a metronome set to a heartbeat not exactly human. Halfway down, I found a window in the concrete, a rectangle the size of a TV, set at shin height. The glass was thick and fogged from the inside. I wiped it with my sleeve and pressed my face close. On the other side sat dirt, perfectly raked, a diamond's brown infield packed tight. The white of a base gleamed in the gloom, so close I could have touched it if the glass would let me. A foul ball rolled past the window slow as a funeral. My phone buzzed, startled me so hard I almost dropped it. No notification, no icon. Just the vibration, like something outside it wanted me to think someone had found me. The screen clock stuttered again, 12:49, 12:52, 12:54, back to 12:50. The battery percentage flickered between 86 and 1 and then settled stubbornly at 86. I thumbed to the audio app and hit record. If this was happening, I needed proof. I needed sound. Section 137, I whispered, voice thin. Service level. Stair 13. There's a field under the field. The recording bounced my breath back at me. Then, faint, like someone talking through a winter coat, another voice joined mine on the waveform. Not a whisper now. A stadium announcer's rhythm, slowed and softened, made for a crowd that wasn't entirely there. Now batting, it said, and it used my full name. I froze. I hadn't told anyone where I was going. I hadn't told anyone anything. A soft scrape came from below, as if a bat lifted from a rack. The chanting rose, 2 notes, back and forth, old and patient. I tried the stairwell door at the bottom. It opened onto a hallway lit by bulbs the color of old teeth. On the wall hung century-old team photos in cheap frames, men with wool uniforms and serious eyes, their arms folded like they'd been told not to fidget. In the front row of one photo, a man's face had been rubbed nearly blank by fingers that couldn't stop touching it. Someone had scrawled again across the glass in the dust. I passed a sign, home dugout painted in a font no one had used since the 50s. My sneaker soles stuck slightly when I crossed the threshold, like the floor remembered rosin and sweat. A rack of helmets sat on the left, scuffed flat black, crowned with numbers I didn't recognize. One helmet had a sticker peeling off the brim, 13. I touched it without thinking. The plastic was cold as if it had been sitting in snow. Hey, a voice barked from deeper in. Authority, automatic. You can't be in here. Relief hit me so fast my knees went watery. A person. Security. Anyone. Sorry, lights went out. I'm trying to get back up to the... I turned the corner and saw the source of the voice, an umpire's mask hanging from a nail, a windbreaker draped beneath it like a body. The sound had come from an old speaker hidden under the bench, its red light the only living color in the room. It crackled to life again, and a different voice came through, the smoker's rasp from the voicemail. If you're hearing this, it said, you're under the stands and the innings turned. You can tape down the switches and prop open the doors and the lights'll still go when it wants them to. You can count the pitches but the count won't save you. Listen to me, if you hear them ask for one more, don't give it to them. People who give it to them don't come back. I swallowed hard enough it hurt. Who are you? I asked the empty room. Doesn't matter, the recording said. What matters is, the rest cut off in a swallow of static, like a hand had pressed over its mouth. The red light died. The room felt abandoned again. I stepped out onto a short tunnel where the dirt started. You could smell it now, the deep, mineral scent of earth packed and unpacked for 100 seasons. Overhead, I could hear the real stadium again, the restless crowd, the vendors corralling the last of the late-night sales, the faint echo of a Jumbotron ad looping with no screen to show it. Underfoot, the hush of a different audience waited. I could feel them the way you feel a storm when the air leans. A whistle cut the air behind me. 2 notes, rising like a question. My breath stopped. No one in my life whistled like that except my father. When I was a kid and got lost in grocery stores, in parking lots after T-ball, at the county fair, that whistle found me like a rope. He hadn't used it in years. He hadn't stepped foot in a ballpark since the night we both pretended nothing had happened. I turned back into the dugout. "Dad?" Silence. A paper cup rolled along the bench and dropped to the floor with a hollow plaque. "Dad." Louder, "Stupid. If this is some kind of..." The tunnel lights surged and steadied. On the wall across from me, where grime had left a clean square around some long-gone plaque, fresh chalk letters bloomed one by one, like a hand I couldn't see was writing them. "Welcome home." The chant below rose fast, like a wave standing up. The announcer's slowed voice rolled over it. "Now pitching." The unseen hand kept writing. Another word formed, the chalk stuttering at the letters as if whoever held it didn't believe what they were spelling. "Dad." The tunnel filled with the sound of a glove popping. A figure stepped into the light at the far end, too bright to make out, a man-sized absence wearing a number I knew by heart. And from the dark beyond him, the cleats started toward me again. The figure at the tunnel mouth stood in that overbright wash like a photo left too long in the sun, features bleached, edges humming. But the number on his back was solid as bone, 27. My dad's old number from men's league, from the jersey he kept in a box like an artifact he couldn't quite throw away. "Dad?" I said, and the word came out smaller than I felt. He didn't answer. He turned his head like a dog hearing a whistle, then lifted his glove and tapped it twice, as if signaling a pitch no one had called. The chant below the dugout rose to meet that gesture, steady, patient, hungry. It wasn't the roar of 50,000. It was the breath of 1,000 people trying to be quiet at the same time. I stepped toward him, and the world shifted half a click, like the projector had skipped a frame. For a second I wasn't in a tunnel, I was 13 again, at a different late-night game, holding a hot chocolate while my dad pointed to the bullpen and said, "Extra innings are when baseball turns into pure math." When the lights flickered back then, he flinched and squeezed my shoulder until it hurt. "We don't go down there," he said. "If you ever get separated, listen for me." Then he gave me the whistle. 2 notes, rising. The memory snapped like a rubber band and I was back in the present. The chalk on the wall still said "Welcome home." "Dad." The air still smelled like leather and clay and something sour underneath. The figure in the light took a step closer. I forced myself to match him. "Why did you stop coming to games?" I asked, too fast, too many years packed into one question. "What happened on our long game night? What happened to your dad? Did you?" The lights moaned overhead. The sound system far above coughed, and a slowed, stretched version of the stadium organ trudged through a victory tune that felt like a funeral march. My phone tensed in my hand and vibrated once. The lock screen showed 3:17 a.m. for a heartbeat, then 12:56 again, like time had hiccuped and swallowed a number it didn't like the taste of. My father, if it was him, tilted his head toward the hallway, an invitation, or a test. He turned and walked away without waiting to see if I'd follow. I did. The dugout steps emptied into a passage mounted with old display cases. Inside were relics under dust, a cracked bat, a lineup card brown with age, a scuffed ball with 2 stitches missing. A brass plaque beneath the glass read histories. Not history. Plural. As if the stadium collected outcomes the way a sea collects bottles. Halfway down, a door stuck proud on its hinges. A small brass plate read Locker 0, a joke or a secret. It opened on the gentlest push. Inside, a single metal locker stood, green paint spidered with rust, combination dial frozen on 1 to 8. I don't know why I spun it the way I did. My fingers remembered how to work an old lock the way your mouth remembers a childhood prayer. The door bounced open. A spiral notebook lay on the shelf. The first pages were sweaty soft from being turned by anxious hands. A yellowed sticker on the inside cover read property of Grounds, F. O'Neill in tall, careful letters. I flipped to a page marked with a paper clip. Right away, the words punched the air out of me. August 12th, extra innings. 17th. Heard the chant. Did not look. Remembered the rule: when they ask for one more, you do not give it to them. Another entry, months later. April 30th, 14th. Security found a boy at stair 13. Wouldn't speak. Kept tapping his glove twice, over and over, like he was practicing a sign. We moved him along. Nothing to see. But the grass on the field was wrong the next morning. It had a memory. The mower caught on something that wasn't there. I flipped more. The handwriting got jagged. July 5th, 18th. They opened a door that wasn't on any map. Pat said it was just a draft. I told him to mark it anyway. He laughed. He's gone now. And then, the last page. If I don't make it out, tell my son to leave in the 12th. Tell him to whistle twice if he gets lost. Tell him to stay out of the tunnels when the game goes past 9. Tell him I'm sorry I ever told him baseball was just math. The signature was a smear. But below it, pressed into the paper like someone had written without ink, were 3 letters that only revealed themselves when I tilted the page into the light: D.A.D. The whistle sounded behind me. 2 notes, rising. I spun with the notebook clutched to my chest. The corridor was empty. The light at the dugout mouth grew colder, like dawn had inverted itself down here. The figure waited where the grass should have been, just out of reach. You left this, I said into the empty, because I couldn't say you left me. The answer came not in words but in movement. A ball rolled across the floor from no visible hand and came to rest against my shoe. Old leather. Red stitches dulled to burgundy. I picked it up, and the weight settled into my palm like it belonged there. The underground crowd inhaled together. The announcer's slowed voice rose from the belly of the stadium, gentle as a bedtime story and twice as wrong. Now pitching, it said again, using my full name. For the home team. I backed up until my shoulders pressed the cold cinder block. I'm not giving you one more. My father's silhouette lifted his glove, a calm signal I knew: breathe. Set. Throw. Behind him, the space where a plate should be seen to shine on the floor, a small white square of absence. The chalk line on the ground, my false baseline, curled around my shoes, nudging, like a tide. The stadium above us boomed alive, a real cheer, a real wave of noise as the extra innings game resumed after the outage. The sound bled through concrete and history like rain through old tarp. One game feeding the other. I felt it then, the pull. For the underground to end, the one above had to go on. And something down here liked it that way. My phone shivered. A new audio file appeared in my recordings app by itself, timestamp 3:17 a.m., labeled with nothing but a single word: again. I didn't press play. The chant below grew sharper, transforming into words I couldn't pretend were anything else. One more, they sang softly. One more. One more. I closed my fist around the ball until my knuckles ached. For a heartbeat, the stadium let me hear something I wasn't meant to: a child calling a father's name from the concourse above, and a father's whistle answering from the tunnels below. The figure in the light stepped back onto a mound that hadn't been there a second ago and raised his glove to give me the sign. And then the umpire I couldn't see said, kind as a kindly ghost, play. The chalk under my feet moved. The ball jumped in my hand. And from somewhere I couldn't face yet, a batter stepped into a box that wasn't on the floor, and the crowd, both of them, went silent to watch whether I'd throw. The stadium, both the one above and the one beneath, held its breath. The ball twitched in my hand like it wanted out, like the seams were impatient to spin. My father's silhouette raised his glove again, and every instinct in me screamed to throw, complete the ritual, keep the game moving. But the crowd under our feet, they weren't cheering for excitement. Their chant had the rhythm of hunger. One more, one more, one more. I took a step back, shaking my head. No. I'm done. I'm not playing. The lights above moaned, a deep electric groan of disapproval. The hidden field responded, the chalk lines shifted on the concrete, curling behind me like a leash. My phone pinged again. A live notification popped up. Play button bottom of the 18th, live. 12,983 watching. That number climbed in real time. I stared. There was no service down here. No Wi-Fi. No possible way a live stream should exist. And yet, a thumbnail showed the dugout tunnel I was standing in, my silhouette barely visible, broadcast to thousands of eyes. And the title beneath it read, "He said no." I nearly dropped the phone. My father lowered his glove. The shape of him flickered, like a glitching video, edges pulsing in and out. Maybe he wasn't the one in control. Maybe he hadn't been for a long time. "Dad?" My voice cracked. "Can you hear me in there?" No reply. Only the thump of a ball hitting his glove once, twice, muscle memory trying to survive inside a nightmare. Elsewhere in the tunnels, something hit the walls. A body? Or a door slamming under the weight of history? The noise grew louder, closer, like a stampede moving through tight concrete veins. My father took a step toward me, glove outstretched. Not playful. Not gentle. A catcher waiting for the pitch he demanded. "No," I whispered. "You told me we don't go down here." A memory slammed into me like a fastball. He was younger. I was 13. The game had stretched long and strange. The lights cut. I reached for his hand, except I had grabbed the wrong one. A stranger's. When the lights came back, Dad was gone. Just gone. Until now. I spun away from him and ran up the tunnel. My shoes slapped concrete that suddenly felt too soft, like packed dirt beneath an illusion. My chest burned with every step. The hallway that led me here twisted differently now, an Escher sketch of staircases that didn't match. The service map I had seen earlier? Useless. The structure of the stadium had rearranged itself like a creature tightening its bones. I reached a metal gate and rattled it until my palms burned. Locked. Beyond it, I saw a sliver of the night sky, one single freedom-colored star blinking above the upper deck. I pounded the bars and yelled for help. Above, I heard real cheers, thousands celebrating a single run. The world up there hadn't noticed a thing. They never do. That's the secret the stadium keeps. If a fan goes missing during a long game, it's just assumed they left early. Behind me, the chanting quieted into a hiss. Something dragged across the floor. Cleats? No. Fingers. Drawing new chalk lines. I turned slowly. My father stood mere feet away now, closer than any memory. His face was clearer in the dim light, eyes wide, but not with recognition. With apology. He breathed out a thin, broken sound, like his voice had been unused for years. "It's your turn." And then his arm moved. His body wound up into a pitching stance I had seen 100 times in backyard games, balance perfect, shoulders squared. But there was no joy, no fatherly pride. Only compulsion. He threw. Not a baseball. Something else. Something wrapped in old ticket stubs, bound tight with infield clay, like a memory forced into physical form. It hit the wall beside me with a slap. I flinched and looked. The bundle unfurled just enough for me to see inside. A child's glove. My glove. The one I lost the night Dad disappeared. A battered scorecard slipped out of it, edges soaked with time. On it, someone had written in steady block letters. Born here. Lost here. Pitch here. My knees buckled. Dad, what's left of him, stepped closer, motioning for me to pick up the ball again. This time, his hand shook, like he hated what he was doing, but something else tightened the strings. Above us, the real game cracked into the 19th inning. The crowd roared. And down here, the stadium answered with a deeper roar, like concrete lungs inhaling. The phone buzzed again with a new live stream title update. He won't leave until he throws. The cameras were already rolling. The audience, above and below, was waiting. I looked at my father, at the alive but not eyes pleading without permission. Then the umpire's voice, cold, unseen, whispered one word. Pitch.